Before we got married, my husband had a girl who had been madly in love with him for 5 years, but he fell head over heels for me at first sight. 3 years later, the girl returned to the country after achieving great success, becoming an internationally renowned photographer, stunningly beautiful and breathtaking. As for me, I'm a full-time mom weighing over 130 pounds, with nothing to show for myself. At a gathering, someone joked with Alexander, "Scarlett still kept herself pure for you." He immediately scolded the person, "Don't talk nonsense." But that night, he smoked all night on the balcony. When I heard that Scarlett was coming back, I was changing my daughter's diaper. My hand froze. Is she at the gathering tonight? Alexander was fiddling with his cufflinks, and a fleeting gleam in his eyes made me squint. Yes, she's Shuefeng's childhood friend. Tonight's dinner is also a welcome-back party for her, hosted by Shuefeng. Are you going? He asked as usual. Since giving birth to our daughter, I had rarely gone out with him, so he didn't ask seriously. But this time, even though I was about to say no out of habit, the words slipped out of my mouth. Go ahead. Alexander paused for a moment. But he was always a man of dignity and didn't show much emotion on his face. All right, I'll wait for you downstairs. When Alexander and I entered the private room, there was a moment of silence. After we sat down, a graceful young woman with long hair in the center of the crowd tilted her head and looked over at us. Alexander, it's been a while. Her voice was bright and cheerful, and her eyes were open and confident. Alexander glanced at her, smiled, and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. Scarlett, don't you recognize your sister-in-law? Scarlett let out a soft, sorry, I didn't recognize you at first. Hello, sister-in-law. I smiled and nodded, hello. Before I could finish speaking, Scarlett turned her head away, her eyes seeming to redden slightly. It's no wonder Scarlett didn't recognize you right away. Emily's changed quite a bit. The wealthy playboy Shuefeng glanced over casually, his gaze lingering briefly on my face. Scarlett was his childhood sweetheart, and he had never liked me. My face flushed, and I instinctively tugged at the hem of my dress. After giving birth, my weight had increased from 96 pounds to 130 pounds. My once slender figure had become broad-shouldered and sturdy, with several extra layers of flesh on my face. This was also why I hadn't wanted to go out in recent years. Luke, how dare you speak like that? Alexander picked up a lighter from the table and threw it at Shuefeng. Shuefeng glanced at me, downed his drink in one gulp, and said, Fine, I'm the one with the sharp tongue. I'll punish myself with another drink. Everyone started asking Scarlett about her life over the past few years. She is now a renowned photographer and recently won an international award for a series of African-themed works. Back then, Scarlett used to follow Alexander around with a camera all day. Now she's not only a famous photographer, but also a big influencer. She gained over 100,000 followers on her newly launched account. Scarlett has really changed over the years. I almost didn't recognize her at first glance today. I thought, who's this top-tier beauty? Haha. Scarlett listened with a faint smile amid the flattery. Her fingertips casually held a lady's cigarette, her cascading curls fell to one side, and her elegant leather jacket accentuated her graceful figure, making her look both fierce and alluring. I glanced down at myself. Flat-bottomed boat shoes, wide-leg pants, and a loose-fitting blazer that didn't match the rest of my outfit. I had rummaged through my entire wardrobe before leaving just to find something slightly formal. Among the fashionable, sophisticated young men and women tonight, I felt like a joke. I was momentarily dazed. Just 3 years ago, Scarlett had been begging me in tears. Emily, please give Alexander to me. I liked him first. You have so many people pursuing you. Why are you fighting with me over him? I'm a gentle person at heart. Low energy and highly sensitive, I avoid direct conflict with others, let alone fighting with another woman over a man. So I hesitated and broke up with Alexander. At the time, we had only been together for a short while, and our bond wasn't deep. Alexander, who was usually calm and composed, was so enraged that his eyes turned red. He called Scarlett over and shouted at her. "I don't like you, and I'll say it 1,000 times over. I only love Emily in this lifetime. Please stop interfering in my life." On the way home that day, Scarlett was so distraught that she got into a car accident and spent over half a month in the hospital. Schwef phone called to yell at me, but Alexander didn't even visit the hospital once. At that time, in everyone's eyes, I was probably at the top of this love triangle. But now, I suddenly felt like I was sitting on pins and needles, deeply regretting coming here today. I looked up to ask Alexander when he was leaving, but saw that his gaze was fixed on Scarlett. Over there, Scarlett had taken off her leather jacket, revealing her full bust and slender waist without an ounce of excess fat, surrounded by people as she recounted her experiences. On the African savanna, I witnessed a fierce battle between a lion and a cheetah. At that moment, I felt the grandeur and rhythm of life. Amidst the envious murmurs, Alexander suddenly spoke. "It seems your time abroad wasn't wasted." Scarlett turned her head, smiled sweetly, and softly uttered 2 words. "Indeed." Alexander said nothing more, lowering his eyes and slowly sipping the wine in his hand. I suddenly felt a bit suffocated and got up to go to the restroom. On my way back, I passed the small terrace and caught a glimpse of Alexander and a few men smoking there. Their voices drifted over. "Scarlett is someone we can't afford to be with now. Old Lou, you've been so ruthless to her all these years. Have you never once felt anything for her? Never once regretted it?" Alexander's voice was calm. "The more ruthless I am to her, the better I am for her. Isn't this better? She's become an outstanding person, and I haven't held her back. So stop saying these meaningless things." "True, it's all meaningless now. Look how much your sister-in-law values you now. She never goes out, yet she followed you today. To put it bluntly, she'd probably catch you in bed with someone else and never forgive you." Ha ha. The others laughed and left, leaving Alexander and Schwef Fong behind. Schwef Fong suddenly smiled. "Do you know? Scarlett is still a virgin for you." A brief silence. "Don't talk nonsense." Alexander's cold rebuke rang out. When they returned home, Mrs. Alexander Sr. was sitting on the sofa holding her daughter, her expression grim. Alexander said he still had some work to finish and went upstairs to his study. Mrs. Alexander Sr. watched his back disappear and spoke. You're a mother now and Lily only recognizes you. Try to go out less often. Don't you think about your daughter needing to nurse? How can you be like Asu and come back so late?" Sophia was lying on the long couch playing a game. "Sis, your clothes are way too tight. They make you look so fat." She prided herself on speaking her mind and never holding back. My daughter saw me and pouted her little lips, waving her arms and legs wildly as she burst into tears. "Mom, milk. Milk." I didn't have time to think, immediately picked up my daughter and rushed upstairs to the bedroom, undid my clothes, and started breastfeeding. Once the little one in my arms had fallen asleep, Mrs. Jenkins walked in, bringing a bowl of pigeon soup, with a few pieces of white, fatty meat floating on top. The fishy smell hit my nose, making me feel nauseous. "Take it away." "I don't want to drink it today." Mrs. Jenkins remained expressionless. "This is what the old lady instructed. If you don't drink it, I'll have to pour it all out, and I'll have to report it to the old lady as is." I said nothing. Mrs. Alexander Sr. insisted on breastfeeding until the baby was 2 years old. To stimulate milk production, she required me to drink various soups and broths every day, without any salt or other seasonings, claiming that the pure broth was best for the baby. I refused a few times, and Mrs. Alexander Sr. criticized me in a sarcastic tone for a long time. Eventually, whenever she spoke, I would inexplicably get a severe headache. The headaches were even worse. I pinched my nose and finished drinking, then swallowed the meat like medicine, and Mrs. Jenkins reluctantly took the bowl away. That night, I woke up with stomach pain and wanted to ask Alexander for medicine, but found the bed empty. Looking up, I saw Alexander standing on the balcony smoking, his figure looking somewhat melancholy in the smoke. He gazed into the night sky with a distant expression. He seemed lost in thought. After that day, my life continued day after day. Most of the time, I stayed with the children on the second floor, trying to avoid hearing Mrs. Alexander Sr.'s sarcastic mutterings and Sophia's mocking tone. Every trivial detail of the children's lives occupied all my time and energy, monotonous, repetitive, yet reassuring. It kept me from facing, thinking about, or changing anything. What made me happy was that my daughter was growing up day by day. In 2 months, she would be 2 years old. That night, as we were about to sleep, Alexander suddenly seemed to remember something and casually mentioned, "Our art museum is currently organizing a photography exhibition for Scarlett, so things might get busy." It took me a while to process the logic of his words. Over the past 2 years, I've always been like this, slow to think and slow to speak. He said they were preparing, which means they've already gone through the process of initial contact, discussions, and finalizing the plan. As the museum director, Alexander and Scarlett have met at least 10 times. I remained silent for a moment, various emotions building up inside me until I finally couldn't hold back. "Why do you have to hold her exhibition? You know she has ulterior motives toward you. She's been sending gifts to our house from time to time over the years. Shouldn't you avoid?" "Enough." Alexander interrupted me harshly. "What nonsense are you talking about? Scarlett won an international award. Which art museum wouldn't want to collaborate with her? It's just work. How did you become one of those jealous women on TV?" His expression was filled with disappointment, and when he said the last sentence, his cold gaze swept over me. I froze for a moment. I instinctively looked at myself in the mirror beside me. I was overweight and looked exhausted. There was a yellow stain on my loose pajama bottoms. It was my daughter's poop that she had accidentally smeared on me earlier, and I hadn't had time to change yet. Shame and embarrassment washed over me, and I felt my resolve crumble. I just wanted to crawl under the covers and wrap myself up. But I stood there motionless, not dwelling on his earlier words, and instead asked another question. "You promised me that once our daughter turns 2, you'd move out. Do you still stand by that?" Alexander's brows furrowed at my words, his face quickly clouding over with irritation as he spoke impatiently. "I really don't understand why you can't just live a normal life. Now my mom, my sister, and Mrs. Jenkins are all helping you take care of the kids. Isn't that good enough?" I shook my head and spoke slowly. "Mrs. Jenkins only cooks, and Mom only holds Sophie for 10 minutes when you come home. You get annoyed when you hear the baby crying." Alexander's voice grew quiet. "Emily, are you criticizing my family in front of me? You don't have to do anything, just feed the baby, play with her. For a mother, isn't spending every day with your child the greatest happiness?" I looked at the ground and fell silent. After a long while, I spoke softly. "Happy, but not joyful." Alexander didn't hear me and went into the wardrobe to change clothes. When he turned off the light and lay down, he spoke coldly in the darkness. "You should know about Scarlett. If there was anything between us, it would have happened long ago, and it wouldn't have involved you. Also, I don't want to hear you speak ill of my family in front of me again. They owe you nothing." After that argument, Alexander bought me a pair of diamond earrings and transferred 200,000 yuan to my parents in my name. That was his style. When he spoke harshly, he compensated with material things. I know my mom can be overbearing sometimes, but I'm the one who'll spend the rest of my life with you. Please try to be more tolerant for my sake, okay?" He kissed me gently, his voice soft and tender. My mom called, her excitement evident. My daughter really has good fortune. As her mother, I'm lucky too. You must hold onto the son-in-law. But you've always been obedient and well-behaved, unlike your good-for-nothing older brother. Mom can rest easy. While playing with the children downstairs, the other mothers expressed their envy toward me as usual. Your husband has a respectable job, your in-laws fully support you, and you have Mrs. Jenkins to take care of you. You're the envy of all us full-time mothers. I began to eat without restraint. Sweet, salty, soft, and hard, I shoved everything into my mouth, not because I was hungry, but because I wanted to see if I could fit one more bite. While feeding my daughter in my loose-fitting pajamas, Sophia glanced at me and tooted, then said into the phone to her boyfriend, "I'll never just lie around like that. I'll never be a useless parasite." I didn't want to stay home or see the other moms in the neighborhood, so I took my daughter to the nearby mall to get some fresh air. But I unexpectedly saw Alexander and Scarlett at the mall. They were promoting an upcoming photography exhibition and were being interviewed by the media. I pushed the stroller to the edge of the crowd. On stage, the two sat side by side, their toes touching. Alexander was dressed in a suit, looking elegant and refined. Scarlett wore a black off-the-shoulder dress, elegant and graceful. What's the moment that stands out most in your memory? No lying. Scarlett smiled. It was when I was filming War Orphans and risked my life to enter the war zone. Suddenly, I received a message from someone who told me to take care of myself. That day, because of his words, I managed to avoid an airstrike. The audience erupted into applause. When it was Alexander's turn, he paused for a moment before speaking in a solemn voice. "The day before the wedding." The reporter laughed. "Was it because you were nervous?" "It seems like Alex has a very happy marriage." Everyone laughed along. Scarlett turned her head and stared intently at Alexander. Her chest rose and fell, and her eyes sparkled. My gaze fell on her neck. A dazzling diamond necklace with a sparkling center stone. It was the same design as the diamond earrings Alexander had given me. I suddenly felt short of breath, turned abruptly, and pushed the car straight out the door. The car came to a stop. Shui Feng tilted his head, leaning casually in front of me. "Since you're here, why not say hello?" I forced a smile. "The kids need to go home and sleep, so I won't be staying." "Shui Feng, could you please move aside?" Shui Feng didn't move, just snorted lightly. "You're not uncomfortable seeing old Lou and Scarlett together, are you? I guess they do look good together. If you go over now." His words trailed off, and he looked surprised. "Why are you crying?" I'll just leave." I gently wiped the corner of my eye and spoke softly with downcast eyes. "Sorry, a little bug flew into my eye. Goodbye." As I left, I felt a gaze on my back. It followed me all the way. That night, Alexander returned with a flushed face and a hint of drunkenness. When he leaned in to kiss me, I instinctively turned away, but caught a glimpse of a cut on his upper lip. "How did you cut your lip?" "Ugh, I accidentally bit it while eating dinner." "You bit your upper lip while eating?" I leaned against the headboard and asked quietly. His expression darkened, and his voice carried a hint of irritation. "Emily, what are you nitpicking about now?" "I'm exhausted today. I met a lot of people and talked a lot. I really don't have the energy to comfort you. Go sleep in the guest room." I lowered my eyelids and spoke softly, no longer dwelling on the matter. He furrowed his brows slightly. "What did you say?" Over the past 2 years, Mrs. Alexander Sr. had been concerned that the children's crying would disturb his rest and had repeatedly suggested that we sleep in separate rooms. Though I was timid by nature, I had never agreed to this, which had caused Mrs. Alexander Sr. to hold a significant grudge against me. At that moment, I looked at the intricate patterns on the bedspread and said calmly, "Lily has been having trouble sleeping lately, and you've been busy with work and need to rest. Why don't you sleep in the guest room?" "As you wish." He stared at me intently and gave a mocking laugh. As he reached the door, he suddenly stopped. Actually, seeing you like this makes me feel awkward every time. Thank you for understanding me. The door closed. The room fell into silence. I stared out the window for a moment, then picked up the phone lying nearby. The screen was still lit, showing the brand's official website. In the corner of the page featuring the diamond necklace, there was a small image of earrings. It read, "Buy one, get one free." I swiped the screen without emotion and entered a live stream titled "Frost Travels the World." Scarlett was streaming live. On screen, her cheeks were flushed, her lips curved into a smile, and she looked tipsy. "Chat, Miss Jean looks so happy. Are you in love?" Scarlett smiled. "Not yet, but I am in a good mood today. A long-held wish has been fulfilled, so I had a few extra drinks. Hurry up and tell us. Speak your mind when you're drunk. The fans in the live stream are in for a treat today." Scarlett laughs out loud with a tipsy smile. "All right, I'll tell you. You all know I'm a free-spirited person. The craziest thing I've ever done was to offer myself to someone I liked the day before their important day." "Ah, did you get him? Did you end up together?" Scarlett flips her hair seductively, but he rejected me and chose to be with someone else. However, today, he showed me with his actions that he regrets it. He regrets it so much. As she said the last sentence, she gently traced her red lips with her slender, pale fingers. It's not too late. As long as the guy is single and the girl is unmarried, it's fair game. But he already has a partner. That's not right. Scarlett shook her head disdainfully. The woman by his side? I used to find her tolerable, but now? Competing with her would lower my standards. Besides, you underestimate me. I wouldn't stoop to being a third wheel. Then it's a pity you missed your chance. Of course not. I'm Scarlett. I'm not the type to give up easily. She narrowed her eyes and smiled slowly. Stealing someone else's man is no fun. You have to make them beg, grovel, and come to you willingly. That's what makes a woman truly powerful. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the swollen, exhausted woman inside. Motionless. Rolling thunder echoed outside the window. After days of dry weather, the first autumn rain was finally coming. Mrs. Jenkins pushed open the door. "Little Lee, come here and drink the carp soup." I didn't move. "What's wrong with you?" "I don't have time to wait today. Don't make me miss my TV show, okay?" Mrs. Jenkins' voice was impatient, even tinged with a hint of scolding. I turned around, tilted my head, and looked at her. "I won't drink it." Her eyebrows furrowed, and her voice suddenly rose several decibels. "Then don't blame me for telling the old lady the truth." I smiled softly, as always, speaking in a gentle voice. "Go on, old man. Go tell her right now." She stared at me, seemingly unable to believe her ears. I continued in the same soft tone. "Oh, and next time you come in without knocking, I'll report you for stealing the old lady's gold earrings." "Oh, your son is preparing for his civil service exam, isn't he?" Her cloudy eyes flinched, and she stood there for a few seconds before hurriedly walking out. Her panicked figure disappeared. The door was carefully closed. The autumn sky was azure and vast, clean and clear. I sat beside the playground slide, gazing up in awe. After a long time, I sighed. What a nice day it is. As I pushed Lily home, Mrs. Alexander Sr. was sitting at the dining table with her arms crossed, her eyebrows, eyes, and lips all drooping downward. Alexander and Sophia weren't home today, and usually at this time, she would find fault with me and scold me. Not to mention that I was an hour late coming home today. Didn't your mother teach you any manners? Do you expect your elders to wait for you to eat? Don't you know I'm old and can't go hungry? I'm so unlucky to have to worry about you, a good-for-nothing wife who can't even make a sound when hit with a stick. I should have just died with your father. Then go, I said. What? Mrs. Alexander Sr. frowned. I placed Lily on the doormat, turned around calmly and softly uttered a few words. "Go die." Mrs. Alexander Sr.'s pupils dilated slightly. A few seconds later, the flesh on her cheeks twisted and trembled, and a growl escaped her throat. "How dare you?" I glanced at her. I let you off. What's the matter? Do you want 80 lashes? You whore. Get out of my house." She charged at me in a rage, raising her hand to slap me. Just as her hand was about to land, I let out a scream and fell onto the mat, clutching my head and wailing in pain. My head. Mrs. Alexander Sr. was startled by my appearance, paused for a moment, then turned to Mrs. Jenkins standing at the kitchen door and shouted angrily, "Did you see that? This slut has the nerve to frame me." Mrs. Jenkins looked troubled. "Old lady, I saw it. You hit her." Mrs. Alexander Sr. stared in disbelief. What? When Alexander returned, I was lying weakly on the bed with a bandage around my head. Mrs. Jenkins sighed beside me. I went to the hospital with little Lee. The doctor said she not only has severe external injuries, but also a serious concussion. She can't be exposed to any stimulation for a while. Sigh, I never thought the old lady would be so harsh just because she came back a little late. Alexander frowned, gently stroking my hand, his lips tightly pursed, saying nothing. He does have feelings for me. I don't doubt that. That's why I've been able to endure all this and persist until now. But back then, his love was what kept me going. Now his love is simply useful to me. Mrs. Alexander Sr. was shouting at Sophia outside. "That bitch told me to die. She fell on purpose and framed me. She's a snake-hearted bitch." Alexander couldn't take it anymore and stormed out. Moments later, a suppressed yet angry voice echoed. "Mom, Em wouldn't do that to you. You've been bullying her all along. I thought you were letting it slide because you're the elder, but this time you've gone too far." Before the loud argument erupted, I put on my noise-canceling headphones and played a majestic symphony. I was so engrossed in the music that when Alexander came in with a flushed face, I was momentarily confused, not knowing why he looked that way. "I'm sorry, Em. It was my mom who was wrong. I'm apologizing to you on her behalf." His face was filled with guilt and concern. My eyes welled up with tears, and I looked timid. "Wee Sue, can I move out for a while? I'm a bit scared to see my mom." He walked over and hugged me gently. "My mom's been emotionally unstable lately. It's better if you stay away for now." "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." Alexander rented a small 2-bedroom apartment. The neighborhood wasn't upscale, but it was clean and tidy. When we moved out, we made sure Mrs. Alexander Sr. wasn't home. Sophia lay sprawled on the sofa, still speaking in her usual sarcastic tone. "If you've chosen to give up, why bother trying anymore? You got the better deal and now you don't want to suffer? There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world." I felt ashamed and nodded in agreement. "You're right. I should learn from you. Your family wanted to keep the fact that all 3 houses were registered under your brother's name a secret until you got married. Now that I think about it, that was overthinking it. A independent woman like you wouldn't be a freeloading parasite, would you?" As Sophia's expression froze, I took my daughter's hand and walked out. Why was Mrs. Alexander Sr. shouting so loudly for me to get out of this house? Because before I married into the family, she had already transferred all the properties into Alexander's name. In other words, these 3 houses were Alexander's premarital property and had nothing to do with me. They also had nothing to do with Sophia. Since that was the case, it might as well stir up this seemingly peaceful and harmonious mess. Sophia's boyfriend is a small-time thug. I had placed a little hope in them. On the day of the move, Alexander only stayed in the apartment for 10 minutes before leaving in a hurry. Scarlett called, saying she had left an earring in his office and asked if he could bring it to her. Alexander generously told me the contents of the call, sounding somewhat helpless. She must need it urgently. Since I don't have anything important to do today, I'll run over and give it to her. We were both familiar with Scarlett's tricks. She had pulled this stunt multiple times when we were dating, and Alexander had always seen through her and dismissed her with a sneer. At that moment, I nodded and said, "Go ahead then. She must need it for an important occasion. If it's too late, you can stay at Mrs. Alexander Sr.'s place. It's closer to the art museum, so you won't have to go through the trouble." Alexander looked surprised. "It's your first day moving in. You don't want me to stay here." I looked at him and smiled gently. "Work comes first." He paused for a moment, a flash of irritation crossing his face, then said in a rough voice, "As you wish." After Alexander left, I tidied up the room, fed my daughter, and took out the small cake I'd bought at the entrance of the neighborhood earlier. I lit the candles and blew them out. "Emily, happy birthday," I said softly, then blew out the candles in one breath. I sat down at the desk. I opened the book. When we moved here, Alexander had suggested finding Mrs. Jenkins to help take care of the children. I refused. On one hand, I had longed for this freedom to be alone. On the other hand, I needed quiet. Uninterrupted quiet. Having lived an aimless life until 30, at the most crucial stage of a woman's life, I had to force myself to reflect on the past and reassess. I had beauty but no substance to back it up. I was weak-willed and content to get by. I had poor stress tolerance, and when faced with pressure, I would binge eat, numbing myself with the easiest pleasures in the world, falling into a vicious cycle that repeated itself over and over. That day, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at myself. A thought suddenly popped into my head. Why not just get a divorce? This thought had never formed in my mind before, but once it did, it gave me a shiver of relief and freedom. But I had nothing. No job, no savings, no competitiveness, and no custody of my child. After much consideration, I could only identify two advantages. First, my beauty, now hidden beneath layers of fat. Second, my focus, which had allowed my not-so-bright mind to complete my education. So I decided to do two things. Lose weight. Take the civil service exam. The first step in both of these was to leave that house. I needed time and space to rest and recharge. At that moment, my daughter was breathing evenly beside me, the warm yellow light from the desk lamp illuminating the open pages of a book. On this birthday night when my husband had gone to meet another woman and forgotten me, I was enveloped in a long-lost sense of stability and peace. My heart is incredibly calm. I realized that household chores for two people aren't that much. I prepare my own weight loss meals and make baby food for Lily. It's simple and convenient. She sleeps 13 hours a day, and besides my 6 hours of sleep, I have 7 uninterrupted hours for studying. During my lunch break, I read. At night before bed, I read. Days without internal conflict are so much easier. In the first week, I lost 6 pounds, dropping to 126. Alexander used to come over frequently at first. After I turned him down several times under the pretext of being tired, he started coming over occasionally, and even when he did, he didn't initiate conversation much, looking distant and cold. I knew this was his way of asserting himself. In the past, I would have humbled myself in front of him, reflecting on my mistakes, seeking reconciliation, and even initiating intimacy. But now, I couldn't care less. By the end of the first month, I had lost 12 pounds, bringing my weight down to 120. While playing with my daughter, I munched on cucumbers and glanced at Lu Shuang's social media account. She was someone who loved to document and share her life. At a Western-style restaurant, she wore a low-cut dress and elegantly clinked glasses with a man across from her. On his wrist, the custom cufflinks I had bought for Alexander online were clearly visible. Meanwhile, Sophia and Mrs. Alexander Sr. had launched a bitter battle over the inheritance. The neighborhood moms I used to know would tell me about the latest developments every day. Sophia was spreading rumors everywhere, saying that since her mother had been so ruthless, she wouldn't blame her for not letting her live out her golden years in peace. When Alexander came over, he occasionally mentioned home, his face twisted with irritation. By the second month, I had lost another 10 pounds, weighing in at 110. On my daughter's second birthday, I specifically called Alexander. No matter what, I didn't want my daughter to spend her second birthday in this world without her father by her side. But he didn't show up until after she had fallen asleep. Between doing 3 sets of practice papers, I opened Scarlett's account. Sparkling fireworks, an empty beach, a pair of high heels lying on the ground. And my husband, carrying her on his back. It read, "Wish fulfilled +1. Oh! Putting down my phone, I began the 4th set of practice papers. As I fell asleep, the world outside was pitch black and silent. They say the moment a seed cracks open is always at 3 in the morning. I didn't feel lonely. My heart was filled with abundance and hope. Alexander called, saying Schwef Phone was celebrating the company's big profits with a banquet and wanted me to attend. I don't need to go, do I? I put down my pen and rubbed my eyes. I don't know what he's thinking. He said he invited a master to bless everyone, and everyone who goes will be blessed with good fortune. He insists that everyone must go. I had to tell you, otherwise. I suddenly interrupted him. I'll go. The voice on the phone instantly became impatient. Are you going because of Scarlett again? Sigh, Emily, do you know how ridiculous your behavior looks to others? What about Lily? I've already arranged for Mrs. Jenkins during the day. But you said we didn't need Mrs. Jenkins? Times have changed. I have something important to do recently. He snorted. Besides taking care of the kids, what could you possibly have to do? Go or not, it's up to you, but I won't be able to pick you up that day. Before he could finish, I hung up the phone. These days, I'm racing against time and don't have the patience to listen to his rambling. On the day of the banquet, when I appeared in that silver cheongsam that had once stunned everyone at the company's annual party, everyone's eyes widened in astonishment. That morning, my weight was exactly 100 pounds. Compared to my previous slender figure, my current curves were more voluptuous and graceful, showcasing the beauty of the cheongsam to its fullest. Alexander was listening to Scarlett speak, but when he caught sight of me, he froze for a moment before getting up and walking toward me. Behind him, Scarlett bit her lower lip, her eyes wide with shock. You really surprised me today. Alexander's eyes sparkled with admiration and surprise. Over the past 3 months, he had always come and gone in a hurry, and I had always worn loose-fitting loungewear in front of him, so he hadn't had a clear sense of how thin I was. Come, take my arm. I'll escort you to your seat, he said with a smile. I didn't move, my gaze passing over him to the stunned expression on Xue Feng's face behind him. Xue Feng, can you take me to meet the master? Xue Feng's eyes flickered, and he replied softly. Of course. Under Alexander's displeased expression, I followed Xue Feng out, one in front and one behind. 10 minutes later, I received the master's blessing for my studies. The master said that when Chongjun would protect me, and I would start off victoriously. Regardless, I felt much more at ease. When I stepped out of the room, Alexander was waiting at the door with a smile, asking me, "Did you pray for me and Lily?" I was someone who believed in the mystical, and every year I would make a special trip to a mountain temple to ask for a protective amulet for Alexander. After all, at that time, he was my sole reliance. But now, I realized that the true reliance was myself. Protecting others was no better than protecting oneself. Scarlett walked over in her high heels, swaying gracefully, gave me a sidelong glance, and said with a smile, "Sis-in-law must have put a lot of effort into her appearance. But let me share a lesson I've learned over the years. While beauty is certainly a plus for women, without a career, you can't be independent, and you can't fulfill your true value. Not necessarily. Behind me, Xue Feng suddenly spoke up. Scarlett's expression froze, and she immediately looked displeased. Alexander also looked at me and said, M's interests lie not in the outside world. For her, home is her career. Scarlett's expression grew even more unpleasant. I couldn't help but find it amusing. People are indeed superficial creatures. A slight change in appearance is enough to alter others' attitudes toward you. Anyone, including those closest to you. Midway through the gathering, I wanted to leave without explaining further, so I made an excuse to go to the restroom and headed toward the hotel exit. At the corner, I heard Scarlett and Xue Feng's voices. Who the hell are you to her? Why are you taking her side instead of mine? Scarlett demanded. Xue Feng snorted coldly. Scarlett, ask your conscience, haven't I done enough for you? If it weren't for me spending a fortune to buy those photos off you, where would you be today? Have you gotten too arrogant and forgotten who you are? I stood there in silence for a moment. As I walked out, Alexander caught up from behind. Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? Let me drive you back. I kept walking. Aren't you with Scarlett for the interview? He paused. Wait for me. It's not safe for you to take a taxi alone at night. At that moment, a sports car pulled up smoothly beside the steps. The window rolled down and Xue Feng tilted his head. Shall I give you a ride as your host? No, M isn't used to it. Alexander declined on my behalf, but I opened the car door and smiled at Xue Feng. Thank you. As the car drove away, I saw Alexander's restless face through the glass. On the way, Xue Feng abandoned his usual sarcastic demeanor and remained silent the entire time. I was left in peace, but due to lack of sleep, I drifted off to the hum of the sports car's engine. When I opened my eyes, the car had already stopped. Xue Feng was sitting in the driver's seat, staring blankly ahead. I turned to look, and we had already arrived at the apartment. I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out. Sorry, I've been too tired lately. You should have woken me up. Xue Feng murmured a low before the car suddenly sped off. Upon returning home, Lily was already asleep. After handing over duties to Mrs. Jenkins, I took a shower and changed clothes. Then I walked over to the desk and opened the book. Another quiet night. Alexander had been coming back more frequently lately. The exam preparation was something I hadn't told anyone about except Lily. His frequent visits made me feel inconvenienced. Fortunately, Scarlett couldn't contain herself either. When Lily was playing with Alexander's phone, her chubby fingers tapped randomly and accidentally opened a photo. Scarlett was standing by the sea, wearing a low-rise bikini. There was a red tattoo above her underwear. It was the character Lou that had been covered up. Half of it was visible and half was hidden. I casually moved Lily's chubby fingers away. Sure enough, when the photo was zoomed out, 2 lines of text appeared. The scar left from that car accident. I carved a secret on it. Do you want to know what it is? I silently recited 2 essays to cleanse my eyes and mind. 2 days later, Alexander suddenly told me that the exhibition was still missing a set of rural cultural photos, and he wanted to take the team and Scarlett out for some inspiration. How long? I asked. About 2 weeks, he replied. I silently counted the days in my head. Alexander noticed I wasn't speaking and pursed his lips. Actually, it doesn't have to be that long. I can shorten the trip. No need. Work comes first, I said softly. His expression grew complicated. You've changed lately. You're almost unrecognizable. I gave him a gentle smile. People change, don't they? Everyone does. The day after Alexander left, Scarlett updated her video. A hotel bed covered in rose petals, with huge shadows overlapping like a terrifying monster. The shadows were swaying. Caption: The wind that was left behind in the wilderness that year has finally been filled by you. I roughly knew how things would end, but the suddenness and speed of it still caught me off guard. It felt urgent, like an announcement, like a challenge. When Shui Feng appeared at the apartment door in a crisp suit, I widened my eyes in surprise. He sat upright on the sofa, completely unlike his usual carefree self. "I'm here to deliver the master's blessed talisman. Everyone who visited him that day received one. This house was found for old Lu by me, so I know the address. They've all gone on a field trip, and I can't reach them. Emily, why are you crying again?" His last few words were spoken in a panic. I put down my phone and gently wiped the corner of my eye. The screen showed the video Scarlett had posted. Shui Feng seemed to understand everything in an instant. After a while, he spoke slowly. "Actually, bad things can also be good things." I smiled sadly. "In the end, I'm just not as good as her." Shui Feng snorted disdainfully upon hearing this. "What's there to be better at? Personal brands are all fabricated, otherwise they're nothing." "What personal brand? How do you fabricate it?" I asked curiously, my eyes still swollen from crying. He looked at me, met my gaze for a moment, then quickly looked away, saying, "Winning an international award isn't that difficult to arrange overseas. Just pay some money, find a talented ghostwriter, and then promote it once they're back." I pondered for a moment, wiped my eyes, stood up, and smiled as I saw him out. "Sorry, the kids need to go to bed." Alexander sends me photos of his hotel room every day, seemingly trying to prove something. I carefully selected a few and posted them on Xiaoshua, asking, "My husband's hotel room while he's on a business trip. Sisters, help me check if he's alone." The comments section erupted with eagle-eyed analysis, deduction, and judgment. The TV reflection shows iced sugar pear juice. Would a man drink such a sweet drink? There's what looks like women's cigarettes on the table. This brand is quite niche. I think I've seen it somewhere before. There's a camera on the table corner with stickers, like something a woman would use. Is the other person a photographer? The bedsheets are wrinkled up and down, like someone was working out. There's jelly on the bedside table. Playing with crystal love. Pass. Next. I didn't respond to the increasingly high stakes, silently waiting for things to simmer. Alexander rushed back on the 10th day. After a heated argument with Mrs. Alexander Sr., Sophia was so upset that she suffered a heart attack and was hospitalized. Sophia then took people to the art museum to cause a scene, behaving in a way that didn't seem like someone in their 20s, let alone someone who had always claimed to be independent. Her goal was clear. She could easily give up the other 2 old houses, but the one she was currently living in must be sold and the proceeds split evenly. This had been carefully calculated. The 2 old houses together were worth only $2 million, while the 2-story apartment they were currently living in was worth $20 million. The photography exhibition was about to begin, and Alexander was the director of a private art gallery. The shareholders were pinning their hopes on this event, and there could be no mistakes. With his mother lying in the hospital and the business he had built over the years at stake, he gritted his teeth and agreed to sell the house. Sophia successfully got 8 million yuan and flew abroad with her boyfriend the next day. Alexander moved into my small apartment, and I didn't hesitate to clear out a small bedroom for him. "You've been under a lot of stress lately. Don't let your daughter disturb your rest." He felt a mix of emotion and guilt. You handled this situation with grace. You didn't argue or compete. You fully supported my decision. Rest assured, once the exhibition is over, we'll go house hunting. From now on, your life will be good." I lifted my head from the public list on my phone, took a moment to compose myself, and smiled gently and contentedly. Yes, from now on, my life will be good. The photography exhibition was a huge success. At the celebratory banquet, Alexander and Scarlett walked around with glasses of wine, toasting everyone like a happy newlywed couple. While Alexander was talking to the shareholders, Scarlett, holding a glass of wine and slightly tipsy, swayed over to me. She stared at me for 2 seconds and smiled happily. So this is what it feels like to get your comeuppance. The people and things I once longed for are now within my grasp. She raised her glass to the sky, looking confident and triumphant. Life is like a vast wilderness. Thank you for never giving up on yourself. I laughed out loud. She looked at me in disbelief, her expression a mix of sarcasm and pity. Emily, haven't you figured out the situation yet? Pregnancy really does make you stupid for 3 years. Do you know that the wonderful life you think you have is already hanging by a thread? I blinked and asked, "Are you talking about finally sleeping with Alexander?" She froze, staring at me, clearly not expecting me to say it so directly. I smiled. Congratulations. After all your efforts, you finally got what you wanted. That must have been tough. Her face turned pale, then she gave a cold laugh. Did you bring a voice recorder? I laughed. Do you think I'm trying to get you to admit something? With AI voice synthesis so advanced these days, who would believe a recording? She narrowed her eyes, as if trying to figure something out, then shook her head and sighed. So you chose to accept it? No wonder they say you wouldn't let go of Alexander even if you caught him in bed. As a woman, I feel sorry for you. But in this day and age, if you want a divorce, you can always do it. What's the point of clinging on so desperately? I tilted my head. Divorce? You're not suggesting Waishu, are you? But last week, we just co-signed to buy a house together. Scarlett snorted. Impossible. What's impossible? Alexander and Xue Feng, along with a group of friends they often hung out with, walked over with relaxed expressions. Scarlett turned her head and smiled at Alexander. Your sister-in-law said you bought a house? The corners of her lips curled into a mocking smile, clearly asking as a joke. Alexander didn't look at her, but reached out to wrap his arm around my shoulder and said softly, Yes. Scarlett froze, her expression shocked. What? Alexander glanced at her and furrowed his brows slightly. Em and I are married. Isn't exchanging houses normal? Scarlett, are you drunk? Scarlett's face flushed red, and she bit her lip tightly, unable to speak for a moment. The people around them looked awkward. Alexander remained calm and composed, as if Scarlett's outburst had nothing to do with him. He spoke softly to me. I've thought it through. From now on, we'll live separately from Mom. The kids are grown up now. It's time for us to live our own lives. I looked up and spoke with a smile amid the laughter. Alexander, let's get a divorce. Alexander's perspective. When Em said those words that day, my first thought was that I was too tired and hearing things. Her voice was gentle, and she even had a smile on her face, as if she were talking about something ordinary at home. But she repeated it slowly and clearly. Alexander, let's get a divorce. Then, to everyone's stunned silence, she pulled out a document from her bag and spoke calmly. I've already signed this divorce agreement. All the terms are in full compliance with the law. You can take a look. She handed me the document, but I still couldn't believe it. I stood there dumbfounded, unable to take it. Xue Feng reached out and took it for me. She nodded at him with a smile. Thank you. Then she turned and left the banquet hall. At first, I thought she was joking. After all, before the wedding, Em had actually been a lively and adorable person. The first time I met her, she was frantically trying to comfort a crying child by the roadside. She accidentally knocked the lollipop out of the child's hand, and her guilty and flustered expression made her look like she had committed some unforgivable crime. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. That day, I fell in love with her at first sight. I've always been someone who knows exactly what I like and dislike. If I like something, I like it. If I don't, I don't. So even though Scarlett had been chasing after me since she was a teenager, doing everything a girl could do to win a boy's heart, I never once felt anything for her. The day before the wedding, with Xue Feng's help, I was tricked into going to her hotel room. There she stood, completely naked. A tearful young woman with a youthful, toned body. It was too shocking. In that instant, I clearly felt a primal physical urge. Fortunately, M had already captured my heart and soul. I picked up my clothes, draped them over Scarlett, and turned to leave. In the mundane routine of married life, I occasionally recalled that scene, imagining what might have happened if I had made a different choice. But in those imagined scenarios, Scarlett's face remained blurry, illusory, and lifeless. Until Scarlett returned to the country, and Shui Feng said meaningfully, "She still kept her virginity for you." That blurry face and that clear body suddenly merged together in my mind. I love M. I am not unaware of her predicament. I know what kind of people my mother and Sophie are. I have been fully aware of this throughout my 20 years of growth. But I thought that M was ultimately a little weak and should learn to solve her own problems in life. After all, I would always be there to support her. On the other hand, her helplessness made her increasingly dependent on me, trying hard to please me, which made me feel secure. So I stood by, watching her struggle, grow pale, gain weight, and fall silent. In the darkest phase of her life, it was the moment Scarlett returned at her most radiant. The way Scarlett looked at me was as intense and unbearable as ever, but she had become more confident and bold. That day, we both had a few drinks, and we ended up kissing naturally. She was proactive, passionate, and fierce, even biting my lip. It was completely different from how it was with M. I never expected Mom to lay a hand on M. Seeing M's pale face, for a moment, I regretted my passive role in her situation. Mom was screaming hysterically, spewing lies and insults at her. This made me feel even more guilty. She was so innocent and fragile, needing my protection. So I took her and moved out. But she seemed to have grown distant from me because of what happened, even refusing to sleep with me anymore. I was a bit upset. Because she had argued with Mom several times, she didn't appreciate it, so I started punishing her by reducing the number of times I visited her and the children. Meanwhile, Scarlett became more flirtatious, and I was swept up in it, unconsciously wanting to take things further. On the day Shui Feng hosted the banquet, M walked in wearing a cheongsam, and I couldn't help but stare. She was so beautiful, she looked like a goddess. I instinctively left Scarlett and walked toward her, shocked and confused. When had she secretly transformed herself like this? M's gaze flitted past me, but she spoke to Shui Feng. I saw Shui Feng, who had always been so bold and uninhibited, acting as obedient as a schoolboy, even walking stiffly. Suddenly, I remembered that when I first met M on the street, Shui Feng was there too. He had laughed just like me. I suddenly understood why Shui Feng, who had always been so indifferent, had become so intolerant of M, a woman with such a gentle disposition, over the years. For the first time, I felt a sense of insecurity. Scarlett suddenly sent me a swimsuit photo and asked if I wanted to see her secret. I understood what she meant. This was a direct invitation. After hesitating for 2 days, I agreed to Scarlett's last-minute plan to go on a field trip. When she found out I was going, tears welled up in her eyes. We both knew what this meant. I told myself it was just a way to comfort this woman who had loved me for years, a moment of pity, a final confession of my obsession. After returning, I would start over with M. I wouldn't be the one standing by while she suffered anymore. I would love her with all my strength, cherish her, and give her and their daughter the best life possible, filled with love. But M said she wanted a divorce. How could she divorce me? She has no job, no experience, and not even any money. Over the years, even when I gave her money, I deliberately gave it to her parents instead of her. What does she have to divorce me with? When I went to find her, I discovered she had moved out. She had left the house with Lily. I frantically called her, but the calls were blocked. I sent her messages, but she only replied, Once the agreement is finalized, contact me. She was so resolute that she didn't even give me a single chance to reconcile. I was at a loss. What had happened to her during this time? As I pondered this, Scarlett said to me, "She knows." I was confused. What does she know? Scarlett gave a cold laugh and said in a malicious tone, "She knows you slept with me." My eyes widened and my hands and feet went cold. Did you tell her? Did she believe you? Scarlett didn't answer, but her eyes turned red. Alexander, what do you think I am? I've loved you for so many years, and after sleeping with you, you went back to your wife to live a happy life. What do you think I am to you? I couldn't believe it, and I was furious. Didn't you say you didn't want anything? Just the memory of what we had? Didn't you beg me to just feel the love? What are you asking for now? I won't accept this. What makes her better than me? I'm more accomplished than her. I love you more than she does. Why did you choose her over me? Scarlett broke down and screamed. I stared at her in shock. Seeing her face contorted like a madwoman, screaming wildly, flashes of our entangled moments in the hotel flashed through my mind. Suddenly, I felt a wave of nausea. In fact, during the time we spent together, despite our physical intimacy, I didn't feel any more joy than I had imagined before. For the first time, I deeply understood the inherent flaws of being a man. When my lower half was in control, I even wanted to taste my own excrement. I suddenly raised my hand and slapped myself hard across the face. What had I done during this time? After reflecting on my actions, I sent Em a message. I don't agree to divorce. Everything can be salvaged. I love you. She replied immediately, and I opened it excitedly, only to find a link to a post on an app. The content was the photos I had sent her from the hotel, with over 80,000 likes and comments. The most liked comment read, "After meticulous analysis by thousands of netizens, the poster only needs to answer one question to be exposed. Is your husband the museum director Alexander? Is the woman the photographer Scarlett?" Em also sent me a message. "If I answer yes, the affair between you and Scarlett will be completely exposed. You should be well aware of the impact this will have on both of your careers. So, why won't you agree to divorce now?" I stared at the message for a long time. The panic of having my scandal exposed overwhelmed me, but I was even more deeply shaken by another thought. How did you become so meticulous, cunning, and sharp? She seemed to have transformed into someone I didn't recognize. When did this happen? Scarlett was being questioned by fans in a live stream. The cigarette in the photo, the camera with the sticker, and the hotel room shown in the video all matched hers, pointing the finger at her. She cried and begged me to help her. She said the taste of being cyberbullied was excruciating, and that someone had already obtained her phone number and home address. After the photography exhibition, our fortunes were intertwined. If she succeeded, I succeeded. If she failed, I failed. If Em had simply replied yes to that post, we would have been ruined. I agreed to the divorce. The newly purchased house, which was marital property, was sold before we even moved in, split evenly. She received $5 million. Custody of our daughter Lily went to her, which was the only thing she insisted on. I had no objections. On the day we finalized the paperwork, I finally saw Em again. She looked even more beautiful, speaking softly to the staff with a serene expression and bright eyes. What surprised me was that she was wearing a formal women's suit. I asked her why she chose that outfit, and she replied softly, "I have a meeting today." I didn't understand. A meeting? What kind of meeting? But she clearly didn't want to talk to me further. I didn't press her and only told her earnestly, I was wrong. I accept the outcome of the divorce, but I swear I only love you. After this is over, I will win you back, just like before." I almost used all my strength to say those words, but she showed no expression. She glanced at her watch, politely said goodbye, and left. My mother, upon learning that she had taken 5 million yuan from the money, flew into a rage and scolded me fiercely. I looked at her furious expression. Suddenly, I thought, if I had added M to the property deed earlier, would she have left so decisively? I finally found out M's new address. That day, I went to find her with flowers, but unexpectedly saw Xuefeng. He was holding an even larger bouquet, standing downstairs with a gloomy expression. Anger surged from my heart. If it weren't for his involvement, Scarlett and I would never have ended up like this. Xuefeng had played the role of pushing me step by step toward the abyss from the very beginning. So he had always harbored these feelings for M. I threw the flowers and charged at him, screaming. He seemed just as angry. We struggled together. I was at a disadvantage. As he swung his fists at me, Scarlett suddenly appeared, picked up a stone, and smashed it hard against his head. Scarlett had been coming to see me often lately. She said that since we were already divorced, we might as well be together. I rejected her ruthlessly and scolded her. But she just stared at me blankly. At some point, I suddenly found her terrifying. I realized something with utter horror. What seemed like a moth flying into a flame was, at its core, a form of kidnapping and coercion. Once your heart is distracted, you'll be trapped, with no place to go. "You're crazy!" I shouted from the bottom of my heart. Xuefeng woke up, but one of his eyes was blinded. He was furious and revealed a shocking secret. Scarlett's award-winning African-themed work was created by an 18-year-old genius from the local area. Due to poverty, it was bought out for 200,000 yuan. He posted a large amount of evidence online, including a payment receipt for 200,000 yuan. Scarlett was finished. Not only was her reputation ruined and she faced online abuse, but she also had to deal with Xuefeng's lawsuit for bodily harm. As for me, I was fired by the shareholders for causing severe reputational damage to the art gallery while organizing this fake photography exhibition. I had fallen to the lowest point in my life. But I didn't give up. M became my sole source of spiritual solace. I believed that with my abilities, I could make a comeback. When that day came, I would go find M again. She should have calmed down by then. 1 year later, on the subway ride back from an interview, I saw a video of city propaganda department staff answering questions from journalists about the city's propaganda plans. I saw a familiar figure. M was wearing a well-fitted black suit with the national emblem on her chest, speaking confidently and elegantly. Her voice was steady, her words clear, and her thoughts sharp. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. It was really her. No wonder Scarlett didn't recognize her at first. Emily's transformation is indeed quite significant. My mother became paralyzed after a stroke. Sophie lay on the sofa watching short videos. She had returned home 6 months ago, penniless, after her boyfriend had swindled her out of the 8 million she had been given, and he had vanished without a trace. Since the day she returned, she had never left the sofa. Once, she had mocked M for giving up on herself, for being overweight, and for being a parasite. Now, she had completely given up, weighing 180 pounds, and demanded her share of the remaining family fortune every day. Gradually, I also stopped going out. I stayed home, living off the remaining money and the house, waiting for it all to run out. We can endure this for a long time. Most of the time, I frantically search online for videos related to the city's propaganda department. Whenever M appears briefly, I get excited. Big data has me under precise control. One evening, in the dimly lit living room, I stepped over the scattered takeout boxes on the floor and returned to the bed from the bathroom. I came across a personal video. It showed a group of young girls surrounding M, asking for her autograph. M was the city's publicity ambassador for this year and had many fans. She graciously obliged, responding with warmth that made everyone feel at ease. One girl timidly asked, "Ms. Lee, someone as confident and vibrant as you, have you ever gone through the darkest moments of your life?" M smiled and nodded. Yes, and I believe everyone will go through such moments. The girls all widened their eyes, seeming disbelieving. How did you do it? M paused for a moment, looked at the girls, and answered seriously. Face it, accept it, break the weaker part of yourself, rebuild it, and bloom like a flower from the dust. The girls pondered her words carefully. What if there are cracks after breaking and rebuilding? M smiled and said slowly, everything has cracks. That's where the light shines through. End.